We're all here, Nancy.
Present.
Yes. Here.
There we go. Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the special HRA work session of January 23rd, 2013, the regular HRA meeting of January 23rd, 2013, and the special HRA meeting of February 9th, 2013.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of the agenda.
I so move.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Any discussion?
Is this where I asked to pull from the consent?
Well, we haven't got to the consent yet.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I suppose we could pull it here if you want, it doesn't matter.
I'd just like to request that we be able to take items 3A and 3C
Off of consent.
off of consent.
And I believe we're also going to be taking item E off as well. Okay, with those changes, is there any further discussion?
I'll move approval.
Well, we've moved it and seconded. Any further discussion?
Okay.
If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Consent calendars will be items B and D. Mr. Devich.
Thank you, Chair Sandell, members of the HRA. The consent calendar, for those watching at home, contains, in this case, two items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. And once the consent calendar has been approved, those two items and the recommended actions will also have been approved, and no other action on those two items will be necessary. Item B is consideration of approval of the cancellation of a public hearing regarding the sale of 6345 Bloomington Avenue to Brandel Anderson Homes Incorporated. And item D is consideration of approval of the land disposition agreement with Hennepin County to develop 7316 Clinton Avenue in accordance with the Community Development Block Grant Program guidelines within 2 years of the date the agreement is executed. And that would conclude tonight's consent calendar.
I'll move the consent.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And then these items, let's see, do we move them to immediately following or following the, towards the end of the agenda, where we typically done it?
Typically, we do it right now.
Okay, then we will do that. First item then would be item 3A. Mr.
Well,
Devich.
yes, item 3A, which is pulled off by Commissioner Quam, is a consideration for resolutions authorizing an interfund loan with the City of Richfield and the Cedar Avenue Tax Increment Financing District and approving a cooperative agreement with the City of Richfield. The City of Richfield ordered the Richfield Parkway project, which includes the reconstruction and widening of Richfield Parkway. And due to the significant amount of right-of-way that's needed for the project, the city determined it's necessary to acquire 14 homes on 17th Avenue. The HRA previously purchased 2 properties needed for the project. On the January 7th special HRA meeting, the HRA approved the process to acquire the 12 remaining properties. Those properties are located within the TIF district. The properties would initially be acquired by the city, and then once the purchase process is complete, the properties would be conveyed to the HRA. The properties would then be specially assessed as part of the special assessment process, and accordingly, the HRA would be responsible for the annual payments of the special assessment portion of those debt service bonds. Staff is recommending that the HRA prepay the special assessments with funds from the city's permanent improvement revolving fund through an interfund loan, which would be established between the HRA and the city, and specifically that PIR fund. The purpose of doing that is to provide some financial stability for the HRA until the site can be sold to a developer. And really, I did that in response to the concerns that that Commissioner Quam brought up during the last meeting that we had. So the repayment of the interloan fund would have 3 sources in order of priority, and that would be from the land sale proceeds, would be first and tax increment revenues generated from the TIF district, and then funds from the HRA that are legally available to pay the principal and interest. The proceeds from that prepayment of special assessments would be used to pay down the outstanding principal balance on the assessment bonds in February of 2015. Now, the money that we would use to do this is money that the city has established by city charter in a permanent improvement revolving fund. And what that money has been used for in the past is fronting money for a special assessment process. And of course, it's essential that that money be rotated through. And for right now, we see that we could probably safely loan that money out for a period of time. You know, hopefully it might only be 2 years, and then get that money back in the PIR fund. But at the same time, then, it protects the HRA from the issues that you were bringing about, Steve, and that is that, let's say you don't do something in a year or two, you were worried about the payments back to on the assessments, maybe eliminating the opportunity to do some other programs that the HRA would want to do. This would protect the HRA from experiencing that until the developer is found for the property, and at the same time takes care of the special assessments and provides a way for the city to get its money back.
Do you have any questions, or?
Yes, I'll state why I asked to pull this off. First of all, Mr. Devich, I want to express my appreciation to you for instituting this suggestion in response to my concerns that we would not have funds for other things in development. I see that, in my view, the economy is picking up. We're getting a lot more opportunities to do things as an HRA, and my concern is that I really don't want us to be cash-strapped because of a project that really wasn't in the HRA's planning process. It just came along kind of from the city as something they'd like us to do, and all of a sudden we have an ongoing commitment that comes out of our available funding. I talked with Mr. Regis this afternoon. He essentially identified about $171,000 a year that might be available to us for optional development opportunities from our funding. And of that, he suggested that about $45,000 of that per year would come out of it for
Well,
which
Yeah,
would.
the 171,000 are scheduled transfers right now that the
Okay.
HRA General Fund has
Yeah.
for budgeted year 2013.
Okay.
That would be entirely up to the HRA how they would,
Okay.
want to use those funds and things like that.
That's how we're doing
Yeah.
it now for things that come up and that we have available.
Well, yeah, I mean,
for
those are-
programs that we want to support.
Yeah, I think they use that for
Yes.
various programs that they have and
Yes.
things like that. That comes out of the general fund, yes.
So this would potentially take about a quarter of our funds away from us for doing this for up to 20 years, if, depending on how long we were ending up paying this and how soon it happened that development would occur. I appreciate the effort to put it off for us for 2 years from when the loan starts before we need to pay. But my concern is that in earlier discussions, we talked about how it would probably take 2 years to assemble the property on the half that we're acquiring now. We're probably not going to do the development until we've acquired the other half as well. And if that takes another 2 years, it's really shifting the risk from the city council over onto the HRA and that fund. If we end up with this arrangement. And what I'd like to do tonight is I'd like to request that rather than a 2-year leeway, we have a 4-year leeway with the HRA before we have to start making payments on the loan. I'd like to make that amendment in the suggestions. I did talk with Mr. Regis. He declined to recommend one thing or the other, but he said that it would probably be likely that the city could afford to do that for us.
Well, right now, though, the payments aren't scheduled to begin until 2017, which is essentially 3.5, 4 years away.
Yeah.
So I think we're accomplishing that, and I still feel, I guess I'm not comfortable with deferring payment, other than what we've got structured right here. I think what we've got here is very fair to the city and very fair to the HRA, and I think I'm just not comfortable with that.
I mean, frankly, the payment's not starting till like almost 2017, where you're basically getting that kind of leeway.
From the time that we have the obligation, though, we only have 2 years of leeway. And if we have to be sure that we've got the funds available for that, that already begins to affect, and we only have 2 years really to get the development going from that point. So I'm just looking at it and considering that it doesn't seem, I mean, when people say we could do that in 4 years, they always say best case scenario. And I just feel that the risk is being shifted from the city to the HRA's limited funds at a time when it's very appropriate for us to have is all the funds we can available for helping do development in the community.
Well, at this point, we have no motion in front of us. I am going to move make the motion for the recommended action, which is to approve the attached resolutions authorizing an interfund loan for advance of certain costs in connection with property located within the Cedar Avenue Tax Increment Financing District, and approval of a cooperative agreement with the city of Richfield. And if we have a second, then we can discuss it some more.
Second.
Okay. All right, it's on the table. Any further discussion?
Would this be the
Steve?
appropriate time to move an amendment to that motion?
Certainly.
With that, I would like to move an amendment to the motion that extends the requirement to begin payments on the fund loan by an additional 2 years for the HRA. And I would be willing to accept that that could be accelerated if we have a development agreement in place.
Okay.
And
Is there a second to the motion? Okay, no second. Mr. Devich?
You know, I would make a comment. You know, this would have to be approved by the city council, and I have to tell you, when I looked at a way to address Commissioner Quam's concerns, I found a way to temporarily deal with that so that you weren't facing, the HRA, wouldn't be facing payments within 2 years or so. And I did that by looking at the PIR fund and thinking, you know, I could probably, comfortably say that we could do that for a period of 2, 3, 3.5 years. But if you pass the motion that you're looking at right now, I'm not sure that I would go back to the city council and say that I would recommend the city council do it, because I don't feel comfortable tying up that money for another 2 years on top of what we're saying in here. I mean, at that point in time, I just wouldn't do it.
Instead of 20 years, then we're basically looking at probably a 24-year payoff because we're already deferred at 2 years.
Right.
The bonds are only going to go, the bonds will be matured before this internal loan is paid off. I just don't think it's financially prudent to do this.
Well,
I'm not concerned with the amortization. I'm not concerned with paying it off by the end date. I'm concerned about the start date. And what it comes right down to is either you take the $45,000 from the HRA's development fund for 2 years earlier, or the city takes those risks for 2 more years. And at this point, I'm a board member of the HRA, and I'm concerned with what it is that we're attempting to do here. And I want us not to be cash strapped at a time when we may have good opportunities for development.
Mr. Devich?
Unless I'm really misunderstanding, the HRA at a previous meeting agreed to do the special assessment process.
Yes.
If we withdraw this, it goes right back to the way it was before, and you do the payments in 2 years.
You do the
So-
payments starting in 2000.
Starting in So what this does is it addresses and ameliorates the concern for the financial issue that you're dealing with, Commissioner. But I mean, if the HRA doesn't want to do this, then vote it down and go back to making the special assessment payments in 2 years if you want.
well, we could see if there's no second on the amendment.
Okay, so at this point, we have the motion in front of us. I guess I'm relying on staff and our expertise in terms of a financial status, and we'll support the motion. But if anybody else wants to speak? Doris?
Go ahead.
When I was reading through this, I had been, before I got to point C, my number one question is, when do we start paying interest on this? When do we start paying it back? And then as I read further, I looked through this and I thought that it was very fair. So That's why, unfortunately, Steve, I just can't support your amendment.
Okay.
My reluctance, Steve, is that, you know, I see this and some other things that we've done as a solution to a long problem of, you know, acquiring the properties on 17th Avenue and taking all those homeowners that have been dangling and giving a solution. So this just somewhat confuses that and maybe delays it, and, you know, and I'm an optimist, believing that, you know, good things are going to happen soon. As you even pointed out, it looks like things are turning around for our community, and to show my good faith, I'm going to refuse the compensation that I get as an HRA member, so that those funds can be offset this expenditure.
And to follow in suit with that, I will double the contribution I receive from my salary and donate it to the city. So we have no second. We do have the motion in front of us. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion,
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're not voting on Steve's.
No,
sorry.
it was a regular motion.
okay.
Could you call it again,
All right,
please?
call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you.
If I may
Appreciate
just
your
add,
thoughts there.
no, I think this is a serious matter. I really hope we get it done soon. I don't like the idea that we may have potentially tied up our funds in the way that this came, but I also think that the expression of the HRA does legitimize the decision a bit, because everybody is willing to make this a priority. I was trying for the best I could get, and I'm glad we got what we did get, so thank you to Mr. Devich.
Okay. Item number 3C.
Item number 3C, and let me just find it. 3C is the consideration of the land disposition agreement with Hennepin County to develop 7316 Clinton Avenue in a, oh,
No.
oh, that's D. I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. I am sorry. There it
There's
is.
two of them.
Yeah, 1776. They're both considerations of a land disposition agreement. This one was for 2517 76th Street West, in accordance with the Community Development Block Grant Program guidelines. And maybe you could just explain it. I don't have to go through the whole report, but we're doing this because.
Certainly. The HUD, Housing and Urban Development, who gives us our Community Development Block Grant funding each year through Hennepin County, is they have a process going on right now where they're trying to get properties redeveloped more quickly. The property we have at 2517 76th Street was purchased with CDBG funds several years ago, and we chose to land bank it for a number of years because of the number of homes that were available for sale in Richfield and waiting for market absorption of those. However, right now, HUD is requesting that Hennepin County accelerate the redevelopment of this property, and they're asking that with the city, the HRA, enter into a land disposition agreement to redevelop the property within the next 2 years. At the end of that 2 years, they would, however, be amenable to another 2-year extension, but would like to see it redeveloped within that 4-year time period. If we do not develop within that period of time, or we choose not to enter into the land disposition agreement, it is likely that Hennepin County would require that we repay the $300,000 that was used to purchase the property.
Okay. All right. So we have item number 3C before us. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the land disposition agreement with Hennepin County to develop 2517 76th Street West in accordance with Community Development Block Grant Program guidelines within 2 years of the date the agreement is executed.
I'll second it.
Okay, and just to confirm, is this the Kramer Farm property that we're talking about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, is that the,
Right south
That-
of St. Richard's there to the, one block to the west.
right,
Yeah.
that was that big house?
The
was-
Kramer Farm, yeah.
Okay.
Or what was left of the Kramer Farm, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
I asked that we discuss this, not because I would necessarily oppose going forward with this. I understand the circumstances. I did oppose acquiring it under CDBG because I believed that we have a prime rental market in that area and that it would be a possible development that could shoot a lot higher than an 8-unit project there next to the Crossroads Apartments. I talked with Mr. Stark this afternoon, and I'll try to be sure that I represent it correctly, but I just urged him to consider and said I would like to ask the HRA to consider giving a directive with this as we do this. We've heard, I think, in recent interviews how strong the rental market is right in that area, even within 3 or 4 blocks of this property. And the way this would be set up if it proceeded with an 8-unit development with a requirement of 51% restricted income means that you would have 8 units that are restricted and 3 that are not. And I suspect that it could be a difficult sell first, and secondly, it could be a continuation of what we think is an excessive type of housing. Usually when you do the restricted housing, you end up with the 1 units there, and then you end up with the larger ones in the market rate. I just asked staff if they thought it might be appropriate to look at contacting Crossroads, which is stuck with nothing but 1-bedroom apartments, see if they'd be willing to joint venture on this with us in some way, or partner by taking down part of theirs where they wouldn't have to rehab their buildings for accessibility, and join with us in some way to build 2- and 3-bedroom units on a larger parcel. And I would just like to ask the HRA if people think that would be worth pursuing, and if we'd like to direct the staff to look at that rather than just shooting for the 8-unit separate little project.
Can I have a question?
Sure, go ahead.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a house on the south side of that property?
No, well,
There's
on the south
housing,
side,
south
yes.
of, there's 2 houses, 2 or 3 of them down there. And I think we have to be mindful if we go higher than 8, which I think is pretty high, we've got to still push that to the street and not impact those residents as well. As we look at the visioning task force, those are some of the questions that we had and some of the things that came up, and some of the other housing pieces where people said, this is just too close, too tall. I like the idea of having market rate and more 2 bedrooms and working with the folks over there. I'm concerned about even 8 stories, but, you know.
This is
it's-
8 units,
8 units.
not
Oh,
8
okay.
stories.
I'm
Yeah.
concerned about how high we go with that.
And if I might add, the property is zoned for medium density, so it's currently equivalent to about 3 single-family lots, and hence we got the 8 units maximum for that property. But it would be a good transition, you know, the medium density from the higher density apartment buildings into the single-family neighborhood.
Mr. Stark?
Well, I would just add that, you know, this action really, what we're asking you to do is to delay a decision, in essence, to give us more time. And I think with the appointment tonight of the Housing Visioning Task Force, that's the absolutely appropriate action to take. Let's let the Housing Visioning Task Force do its job and tell us, you know, what we as a community should be looking at in terms of future housing. And I suspect that we will be reevaluating a great many sites that we've looked at over the years based on the input of that group. So again, I think that the action tonight is the appropriate action to take. And I guarantee you that we will take another look at this site once the Housing Visioning Task Force has given us a little bit more direction as a community.
Okay. David and then Steve? Or
Madam
then,
Chair,
no.
if I might, you know, I saw the acquisition of that property and using these funds as a way to cover the cost. And even in accepting and approving this action, it still doesn't tie us up in that if something better comes along, you give the money back or you ask for forgiveness and do the better deal. But if that isn't the case, then, you know, you got somebody else to buy the lot.
Doris?
When I read through this, I just was disappointed that we were being locked into one kind of housing there, when I thought there has to be some other way of doing something more creative with this. Compliments to you, Commissioner Quam, for coming up with such a creative suggestion, and I really would love to see something else happen there.
Okay.
If I could clarify, I'm not arguing that we don't adopt this tonight.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is just for a discussion and an indication from the HRA whether or not we as a body would like to see the staff look towards some more of those kinds of ideas as we proceed.
I think that's great. I think it's a good idea to explore all options. I can support that.
And I guess I would say that I view this as a holding pattern, and I think we have a housing visioning committee that will hopefully be appointed this evening, and this will give us 2 + 2 years to figure out what we want to do. Okay, I will go ahead and move that we approve the land disposition agreement with Hennepin County to develop 2517 76th Street West in accordance with the Community Development Block Grant Program guidelines within 2 years of the date the agreement is executed. Is there a second?
We already did that.
Yep.
Any discussion further? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, and the last one was 3E.
Thank you, Chair Sandall, members of the HRA. Item E, this is simply consideration of a resolution that would call for a public hearing to amend the business subsidy agreement with Lindale Gardens LLC. And the only reason we've asked that it be pulled is because, and I'm going to defer to Karen, I believe it's on the first page of the resolution, which is 3E-1. We have to amend that.
Yes, staff is recommending that the 7th whereas, the last paragraph on the front page of the resolution, be removed from the resolution before it is adopted.
Tell us what that means.
It refers to the HRA approving a First Amendment to the funding agreement, which hasn't happened yet. So therefore, it really makes no sense being in the resolution at this point.
And it's only a whereas in any case.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this, striking the paragraph 7 whereas in
I
the
so move.
resolution?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I think we are on item 4.
Thank you, Chair Sandall, members of the HRA. We are indeed up to item 4. Item 4 is a public hearing and consideration of a resolution authorizing the sale of 6438 Bloomington Avenue to Brandel Anderson Homes and consideration of a contract for private development with Brandel Anderson for the construction of a single-family home under the Richfield Rediscovered Program. And I'm going to turn this right over to Karen Barton.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The Housing and Redevelopment Authority purchased 6438 Bloomington Avenue last winter, demolished the existing substandard house in the fall of the last year. And since then, Brandel Anderson Homes has submitted an application to purchase the lot and construct a new home under our Richfield Rediscovered program. The builder has a purchase agreement with a buyer to purchase the home upon completion. And the new home it would be a 2-story home of approximately 1,600 finished square feet. There's a diagram that Mr. Stark is putting up. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and an attached 2-stall garage. The home will have an estimated end value of $225,000. The builder is also proposing to certify the home through the Minnesota Green Communities certification, and therefore would be eligible for an additional $5,000 credit from the HRA. Construction would begin in March of this year and be completed in sometime this summer. And elevations of the proposed house would be mailed to the surrounding neighbors as a courtesy. I do believe Representative from Randall Anderson is here this evening, if you have any questions.
Okay. Well, this is a public hearing. So is there anyone who wishes to speak on this matter? Does the developer wish to say anything? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is this the same developer, the same homeowner that was looking at the other property on Bloomington Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, and that parcel was problematic?
The end buyer decided that they preferred this parcel over the other one, so they asked for the switch.
So the other parcel is okay other than
It's fine.
personal preference?
There are some challenges, I believe, with the access, but not insurmountable.
Well, maybe the
Do you want to come
developer
and
could
speak? Yeah.
The previous lot, the access was a problem. We figured that there would be about $10,000 worth of dirt work needed to make that lot accessible by moving the dirt around and removing dirt. So they opted not to pay for that fee and to choose a different lot.
And will that likely be a problem for anybody who looks to build there?
I would certainly expect that it would.
Okay. Any other questions for the developer?
Same house,
Mm.
just moved to a different
Yeah.
lot.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is closed. And we have before us a resolution authorizing the sale of 6438 Bloomington Avenue to Brandel Anderson Homes, Inc., and an authorization to execute a contract for private development with Brandel Anderson Homes, Inc., for the development of a single-family home under Richfield Rediscovered program.
Second.
All right, and then perhaps we could do, again, for the folks at home who don't, I didn't see, was it visually on the, it was on the overhead, okay, good. It's really nice to see these brand-new move-up homes in Richfield. Thank you for doing that.
East side.
Yeah. Okay, any discussion, any further discussion? All in
To
fa-
have new people. These are people who do not live in Richfield currently? Correct. Thrilled to have them
Okay,
join us.
yeah,
Currently live in Hastings,
Oh,
and she works at the VA hospital, and he works downtown Minneapolis.
and they've come to the most convenient destination in the metro area. You-
Definitely.
Okay, well, welcome. Call the question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Madam Chair, may I just bring up something after the fact? Since we know that there might be problems in the future with that one, can we look at that and maybe, I don't know, a city can do some things sometimes very inexpensively and see if we can make that more user-friendly? Is there a possibility of that?
Well, we were just talking about, just after this, perhaps in the next week or so, just talking about there, see
Yeah.
if there's anything we can do or should do, or whether that's just an issue with the driveway would be located for this particular house model.
I have a question for Scott, if I could. Scott, how was it that your client was made aware of this program?
I actually was in the Parade of Homes last fall,
He's a-
and we had built 2 homes, and they were referred by one of the homeowners, friends of theirs, to move to Richfield and build.
And were those homes also a Richfield Rediscovered?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. 7338 Queen and 6616 Second were both Richfield Rediscovered.
Word of mouth.
Yeah. We are going to take a 10 to 15-minute recess. The mayor is working on something for us before we make our announcements. We're going to stay here, yeah, so if anyone wants to talk about housing, we're here. So. Okay, we are going to go back on the record from our brief recess, and we did interview, let's see, 3 different times. We did some interviews today prior to this meeting. We also did interviews a week ago Saturday morning, and then the following last Sunday, this recent Sunday as well. So we spent a lot of time interviewing 31 candidates, all of whom were excellent. And we tried to figure out some sort of a way to figure out what was appropriate, how we can select what number is appropriate, and we're going to let the mayor tell us what.
This is a scoring program. This is a scoring program that we've done with the Richfield Foundation. It works really good. Everybody scores everybody independently. Then we take it, and if somebody wasn't at one of them, we take an average and we put it in, and then we do a full sort. And it's all done on the Excel spreadsheet. So I brought my computer in here to do that. Usually there are natural splits, and we saw that in the foundation. There's a natural split here too, Madam Chair. There's a natural split at 20 participants. There is a small split of 4 additional people who could be alternates if we chose to do that, and then the rest would drop off. It would be a choice of whether we wanted to put alternates on or not. With 20, that's a nice size group, or if we want to keep it at 20, or if we want to do the 4 alternates.
And just to let people at home who might be listening, because we did tell people that we would hopefully be announcing the results this evening. One of the things we're going to ask staff to do for us is when they send out the announcements of people that are appointed, to also send thank you letters to the people who applied, along with applications for our other city commissions and information about other openings that we have, because all of the people were excellent, and we really would like to put all of these great talents to work in other places if we can't fit them in on this particular task force. So why don't you give us the names of the people that you would like to recommend at this point for the Housing Task Force?
Yeah, and there was a natural break at 16 points. So the bottom of the 20 is 16, and there were 5 people in that 16 round range. So it went from 23.8 to 16. Starts with Catherine Ragozino, Jen Lux, Randy Johnson, Ghislaine Ball, Steve Schneeberger, James Rudolph, Salia Vergara Quintero, Ann Doherty, John Seck, Craig Thrain, Jeremy Larson, Dan Warnest, Tom Zarth, James Mike Andrews, Allison Grobner, Michelle Dowell, Gordon Hanson, Heidi Geibor, Deborah Williams, Amy Utley for 16.
Would you read those one more time, because I'm trying to find them on my list?
I have it here, and I could email it to staff, but I can read them.
Why don't you read them one more time?
Okay. Catherine Ragazzino, Jen Lux, Randy Johnson. I apologize if I mispronounce. Ghislaine Ball, Steve Schneeberger, James Rudolph, Salia Vergara Quintero, Ann Doherty, John Seck, Craig Thrain, Jeremy Larson, Dan Warnest, Tom Zarth, James Mike Andrews, Allison Grobner, Michelle Dowell, Gordon Hanson, Heidi Geibor, Deborah Williams, and Amy Utley for 20. Now, does the HRA wish for alternates or not? Up to
Madam
discussion.
Chair and Madam Mayor, I would not suggest that we have alternates. We really have a full contingent, which is, at the very highest edge of where what our recommended number is. If somebody is missing for one session, to have somebody who probably wouldn't have sat in on previous sessions would really have to come up to speed quickly. I think that would be enough what to call community knowledge and shared experience on the committee that it wouldn't be necessary to utilize alternates.
I guess I would like to ask Mr. Stark if he had any feelings about whether we should have a replacement just in case or not.
I guess my recommendation would be to have the alternates just for a week or so until we contacted everybody, have some dates figured out,
In case somebody would drop.
just in case somebody drops. What I would rather not do is, if somebody dropped in the middle, to bring somebody in fresh. I don't think that would make
Well, I
any
would think if
sense.
you're an alternate, you have to come. If you're an alternate,
Yeah.
and we were going to use you as a replacement, you'd have to come to all the meetings as well.
Yeah, so I would just suggest that, just until we get the beginning sorted out.
Okay. All right, so would you like to give us the 4 alternates?
I can give you 4, or I can give you 2, because I have 2 higher scoring. I go from 12 to 12 and a half to 13. You want 2 or 4 alternates?
2.
Adam Fleetman and Brian Ringham. They're all over the place here, guys.
What was the first one?
Adam Fleetman, Fleitman, and then Brian Ringham.
Okay.
Be the alternates.
Okay.
I agree that if somebody is going to be an alternate, they have to be sitting in on every meeting, even though may not.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it's my understanding that you would just, Mr. Stark, that you would just like to have those alternates as those that you could invite to add to the panel if there weren't enough that could make the meetings.
Correct.
So they wouldn't really have to be attending all the time. You'd just either be choosing them or.
Well, I think we would know within
Yeah,
2
within-
weeks
Okay.
whether we would need them or not.
And I guess for all of the 31 people that applied, these will be public meetings, and you are most welcome to come and sit in and observe what happens. So just the fact that you were appointed doesn't mean you're not welcome. We would certainly welcome anyone who wants to come. So the 2 is, if I'm understanding staff's recommendation, the 2 alternates would replace if we determine that there is someone who really just change of circumstances can't make the meetings.
Correct.
I will move this slate of alternates and the names that were put forth for the 2 alternates and for the 20 other names.
I'd like to just say that I'd like to thank all of the community members who volunteered to serve on this committee, and I'd like to thank the members of the commission and the staff who worked hard to get a real diverse representation from throughout the community to serve on this task force.
You know, the quality of people that interviewed here, we had to do, it was so difficult. And I got to tell you, there were some people who brought a whole different background to us that we hadn't thought about. It was really, really great. Young people of color, some, which was good. It took a lot of work to get there. Thank you for the hard work. I'm really pleased with that. Could get more, but we'll keep working at that. But this is great.
Geographic diversity within the city.
Yeah. So I have it in here, and as soon as I go home, it'll email to you, Mr. Devich.
Madam Chair, if I might just add, it was really delightful to meet all the people that came in, and some themes of Richfield just came through so loud and clear. People said, it's a community, it truly is a community. We had a trick question that we asked people, are we urban or are we suburban? And we got a few people who said absolutely urban, one person who said absolutely suburban, and almost everybody else said we're either a hybrid or we're both, but being an urban hometown is exactly right. And the other thing that struck me was that besides the fact that I learned a lot from people that I didn't know already about our community, was that people came here, if they ever came here, they wanted to stay here. Once you know what it's like to live in Richfield, you don't want to go anywhere else. And that's pretty heartwarming when you hear that from so many, especially new people who have moved into the community.
Some moved back. Some even talked about they moved back.
And then they recruited their relatives to join them. We had a few that brought in their siblings.
Yes.
So, Okay, do we have anything else on the agenda for this evening?
We should vote.
Payroll.
Oh,
We need a
I'm sorry,
vote.
we did not vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I assume we still have claims and payroll. Is
So moved.
any discussion?
I have a question.
Or second?
Or I'll second.
Second, okay. Yes, go ahead.
There was a $5,000 payout. Was that somebody who did the ecological retrofitting, or it was just a coincidence, it's the same dollar amount?
On the claims and payroll?
Yeah.
To the Metropolitan Consortium
Yeah.
of Community Developers? Yeah, what that is, I'm glad you asked. You got the memo about our new economic development
Yes.
functions,
Yes.
and the Minnesota Consortium of Community Developers is, it's a membership-based organization that has, if I had to guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 metropolitan cities paying into it. This 5,000, normally a city pays 10,000 to join per year. Hennepin County paid half of our money up front for us. And what this does is gives us access to small business loans. It gives us a staff person who will be here at Richfield City Hall once a month. And I wish I could tell you which day, but I can't off the top of my head. That will help people help entrepreneurs put together business plans, help them obtain financing. It's the gentleman's name is Rob Smoland. Many of you may have known Rob in the past.
Yeah.
Rob's served in this same function for us
Yes.
before.
Yes, yes.
That's what that 5,000 is.
Super. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Just say all in favor.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
What are we voting on?
The claims payroll.
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't vote on that. Any opposed? Moving the claims and payroll. Hearing none, we pass the resolution.
The other items that we skipped over were any HRA discussion items or executive director report.
I will ask that, Mr. Devich.
Chair, Sandal, members of the HRA, I really don't have a report this evening.
Okay.
One of the requirements should be that there's always a report. There's got to be something positive that's happening in the community.
Oh, there, I could report, I have nothing to say, but really, there's so many positive things going on, it's hard to,
Pick one.
it's hard to pick, well, you know, John, I'll let you take a stab at it.
Well, we did get the land use application for the Lewandale Garden Center, so they are moving forward. We suspect that will go to the Planning Commission this month and to the City Council in March, and we are anticipating getting a land use application from the grocery co-op any day now as well. So that site should be well underway. I wouldn't be surprised to see construction on that site in a few months.
That will be exciting.
Very exciting.
Okay, any further business? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.